Hello! Adam Wilborn here, and I'm delighted to tell you that today's video is brought to you in partnership with the fantasy booking game Wrestling GM. But more on that in a little bit. WCW had some classic managers back in the day. I'm thinking your Jimmy Harts, your Harley Racers, your Paul E. Dangerously's to name but a few. Legends whose legacies will live on fondly in the minds of wrestling fans. And then are the people who make up this list, a bizarre collection of oddities even the most hardcore of WCW fans would have trouble recalling. With that in mind, I'm Adam Wilborn from What Culture, and these are 10 WCW managers you totally don't remember. Number 10, Sir William. You probably should recognise one of the two people in this photo as William Regal, current GM of NXT, or as he was known back in his WCW days, Lord Steven Regal. But no worries, you didn't get the bloke next to him. That is Sir William, played by ring veteran Bill Dundee for a short-lived spell in the mid-90s. He would accompany Regal to ringside whilst he was doing his old Lord gimmick, and he'd dress like an old-timey English gent. But as I said, it was short-lived. Once WCW had other plans for Regal, they cut ties with Dundee, who went back to work in the independent circuit and still actively wrestling into his 70s. Go on, mate. Oh, sorry. Go on, sir. Number 9, Paul Jones. Paul Jones was the manager of the Powers of Pain in 1988 in WCW. He was leading them on a crusade to rid World Championship Wrestling of the Road Warriors. Usual kind of fodder here, blah, 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 my tag team's the tag team of the future, etc., etc. Unfortunately, by the time 1989 rolled round, he was out of WCW, and with his brilliant cowboy getup and that magnificent moustache. And I say magnificent moustache despite the fact he once shaved it into a Hitler-tash in the NWA. That'll get you heat. Number 8, Alexandra York. This one was a gimmick just a little bit ahead of its time. Future WWE diva Terry Runnels played Alexandra York in WCW. She'd hoy round a laptop that she claimed could predict the results of WCW matches, particularly those of her clients, the likes of Michael Wall Street and Terrence Taylor. The problem was, it was kind of too ahead of its time, and the fans didn't really get it. Or they were just too thick. It's WCW fans. It's either or, let's be honest. Either way, she sort of faded into obscurity until she, of course, returned in the WWF as Goldust Marlena, and she didn't look back from there. Maybe the computer predicted that future for her and she just saw the writing on the wall in WCW. Probably not, though. It was probably just filled with porn. They all are. Number 7, The Master. Nobody involved in WCW creative in the mid-90s will ever live the angle of the Dungeon of Doom down. It was an alliance created to bring an end to Hulkamania. That went well, didn't it, guys? And it grew arms and legs and grew more unwieldy as more and more people were hoyed into the stable and given wacky gimmicks. Case in point, brawling wrestling legend King Curtis Iakea, who became the Master in 1995. He was there to help Kevin Sullivan navigate the dark arts to bring an end to Hulk Hogan forever. As I said, good job on that one, lads. It didn't work. He sat on a crap prop throne looking like an extra from the He-Man universe, and he shouted orders at his subordinates. By the time he got to 1996, yeah, he was on the way out. But before we continue, I want to take a minute to tell you about the fantasy booking game Wrestling GM, who partnered up with us today to bring you this video. We all know that as far as video games go, wrestling fans have been pathetically underserved over the years. In fact, we haven't had a good GM mode for nearly 15 years now, and we all think we can book it better than Vince & Co. But that is where Sicko Games comes in with their awesome free-to-play mobile game, Wrestling GM. Available on both iOS and Android, the game allows players to book entire wrestling shows from the bottom of the card to the very top, as well as manage their promotion in an enormous world of rival companies and aspiring wrestlers. In fact, there are over 500 completely unique performers for you to book and manage, each with rich backstories and different attributes. If you've ever wanted to feel exactly like Triple H the day he first found out what PWG was, this is the game for you. Spanning promotions and performers in the USA, Europe, Canada, Mexico, and Japan, the game builds a global wrestling industry industry for you to try and successfully navigate, all while making sure your own shows are giving your fans exactly what they want. You can download it for free today, and look, here's me crushing the dreams of one of the greatest workers of his generation, purely because he's 5'7". Great fun. But for now, back to our video. Number 6, LEIA MEOW. Sex! Right, now I've got your attention, I can tell you how WWF, WCW and ECW did so well in the late 90s. It was sex. Sex sold. Case in point, LEIA MEOW, who was formerly known as Kimona Wanaleia when she was a valet in ECW in 1999. She was brought into WCW, started off as varsity club cheerleader LEIA MEOW, and then one day they just got bored of that, swapped out the pom-poms, put her in a leather dominatrix outfit, and that's what she became for the tag team, the Young Dragons. You know what, I don't even know why I bothered being on this screen for the entry, because you haven't looked at me for a second, have you, you pervy bastard? Number 5, SHAKIRA. No, not that SHAKIRA. I'm talking about one of Scott Steiner's freaks who was by his side during the late 90s and into the year 2000. I know what you're thinking, does she qualify as a manager? Well, yes. She accompanied Scott Steiner down to the ring for his match and often even ran interference for Big Papa Pump. But if you're trying to remember which one she was the one that wasn't there when he won the world title, having allegedly been fired because Vince Russo asked her to train at WCW's power plant and she refused. But thankfully, one of the lackeys here at What Culture got me a quote from SHAKIRA about her time in WCW. And she said, "Lucky that my breasts are small and humble, so you don't confuse them with mountains." You're fired. Number 4, Miss Jones. The former chameleon in WCW's dance troupe, Miss Jones became Ernest Miller's assistant when the Cat was WCW GM. She was actually presented as kind of a classier woman than what we were used to seeing at the time. She wasn't a Major Guns type character. She wasn't shoving her breasts in people's faces at every possible occasion. This was very unique casting for the time, so I guess well done, WCW? I don't know, it feels like a bit of a stretch. Regardless, she was released in late 2000, but not before having her one and only wrestling match on Nitro alongside Miller, and let's just say they made a better team backstage than they did in ring. This could have worked quite well. It's just a shame that WCW was a sodding dumpster fire in the year 2000. Number 3, Jay Biggs. Speaking of which, as WCW headed into the year 2000, they hired ex-WWF manager Clarence Mason and renamed him Jay Biggs. He kept the whole lawyer gimmick, hung around with Canyon for a bit, and then he brought back Harlem Heat. Except without Booker T. Instead, Stevie Ray was either partnered by Big T or Ahmed Johnson. After a few months, unsurprisingly, that didn't work, and he was released from his contract with WCW. Now, either WCW released him because they just had nothing for him, or he requested his release because he saw the writing on the wall for the absolute state that WCW was in the year 2000 and thought, you know what, I'm just going to go back to my practicing attorney gig because it's a lot easier than this bollocks. You make up your mind which one it was. Number 2, Tony Marinara. Yep. In marinara, as in tomato-based pasta sauce. The future ECW star Tony Marmaluke was Tony Marinara in WCW in late 1999. He played a stereotypical wise guy mobster. He even said that Disco Inferno was gonna sleep with the fishes if he didn't help the Marmalukes achieve success. Of course, this being WCW, the angle never actually played out, and he was last seen cutting a promo at Sold Out 2000 before eventually popping up in ECW. Do not be ashamed if you don't remember this guy. Speaking of which, number 1, the Assassin. Who? I know you're thinking that as well. I did the research for this entry and I'm still not convinced this guy was an actual manager in WCW. Now, my research tells me that that's Jody Hamilton underneath the mask, one half of the Assassins tag team that wrestled across the NWA territories in the 60s, 70s and 80s. He apparently was a trainer at WCW's power plant and dusted the mask off to manage Paul Orndorff and Paul Roma in the 90s. But I'm not sure. They're getting really good at Photoshop nowadays, and that just might be what this is. Are we sure? Jamie Kennedy wrote this. Thanks, Jamie, for writing it. But still, are we sure Kennedy didn't just dream this and then thought, Yeah, you know what? I'll mess with Wilborn and just put it in as an entry and see if he reads it out. I'm still not 100% convinced. Let me know in the comment section if you remember this guy, because I sure as hell don't. And that's our list. Did we miss any out? Let us know in the comment section below, although how you would let us know about managers you don't remember, I'm not exactly sure. Regardless, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE, and I'm on there at Adam Wilborn. Thanks for watching. I've been Adam from What Culture, and I'll see you soon.